Alright, got a 3 ingot team in, finally. And this went pretty well. I'm opening with freeze because my Eald'Narche is 0 out of 3, so it'll take a little while for me to get terror. Bet you haven't seen Eald'Narche use that skill in a run in a long time. Anyways. So, we're building up core, we're building up Eald'Narche. One of the problems with starting with, or with having fewer ingots in your EX weapon is it takes a little longer to start up. And so, get those freezes out so that the giant crocodile things don't do any damage. And I guess I could talk about my calls for a second. So I brought the Sabin call mostly for the delay, but I believe his second call also allows for HP damage up, which I don't believe will actually trigger this orb. I believe it has to be HP damage up from a debuff to trigger the orb. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Eald'Narche will actually do that, because Terror gives Eald'Narche HP damage up. I think Eald'Narche was actually one of the first characters, if not the first character in this game, to get a method of HP damage up. All those years, well, I don't know if it was years ago, but a long time ago. Setzer for the rainbows, because the laws of the universe mean nothing to Setzer. And because core Setzer is so good. Look at that. Actually, I will also say that Setzer is pretty good with Sync. Sync has a lot of hits in her kit, and she doesn't run through the fixed dice buff as quickly as other characters. So that's a pretty good combination. So there's the delay. I'm trying to keep them back until I can get the perfect, or a good setup. Because, yeah, so we'll phase shift here. And now we'll use Vortex Plus. And then I was like, wait a minute, I'm pretty sure I only gave him 2 turns of terror. So now I have to build it up real fast. Again. But I was trying to stop them from, not so much from using their all attack, but I want to keep them on all. If they get a turn without terror, they will no longer be targeting all. And then Core won't get his double little hits in with his off-turn damage. As long as they're targeting all, they're technically targeting Core and one of Core's allies, so Core will basically get 2 shots in. Core only got 1 right there, because Core does not have his EX buff up yet, because Core doesn't have ingots, unlike your Core. And now, we've got Eald'Narche with his Warp and his Terror on the enemies, so we're basically in a pretty good spot. I would speed it up now if I haven't already, but I have because this recording was over 30 minutes long without speeding it up. And sadly, I had to do this run twice, because the first time I took too much damage from the tiny little HP poison that the crocodiles would apply with their all attacks, and so I didn't make the damage threshold. But otherwise, this is a very reliable team for anyone who has it and is having trouble with this team. No ingots needed, or blue. Although I don't know how many people have Eald'Narche and Setzer and Core right now anyways, since they're not exactly accessible. And I don't know when any of them are coming back. So as far as the future, Sid Reigns comes out soon. I'll pull for Sid Reigns because I'm not too cool to do that. I think some people might be too cool to do that, but I'm not. Plus I have Aphmau. So I can always do the Aphmau Reigns combination. Just like I can do the Aphmau Sync combination. Although that's not as good. Tried running Sync with a bunch of different teams, and at 0-3, Sync is just not really usable. I could certainly give Sync ingots, and probably will one day, if I decide to use Sync later, but I can't tell if this is just like a really difficult stage, or if Sync is just not that much better. Sync kind of feels like somebody who likes Cyan or Ceodor, where the idea is they're made really strong, but then with drawbacks. So with Cyan, his drawbacks were he needed 80% or more HP to cleanse. With Ceodor, his drawbacks were he needed 100, the whole party needed to have full HP for his EX to hit as hard as it can. And Sync, it feels like, well, you know, her drawbacks are she's slow and she delays herself, but I don't feel like she's got enough advantages to make up for the drawbacks. Certainly you can play her intelligently. So for example, if there's multiple enemies, her plus skills remove her stun debuff, and you can just keep targeting one enemy and the other enemy will keep the stun debuff, and that will allow Sync to keep using her plus skills, particularly the home run swing. So for example, if A has stun and B does not, you can still get plus skills or home run swing plus on B as long as you don't target A. And so then when would you target A? Well, when the EX is about to be fully charged and you can just reapply stun. And don't use Sync's LD on somebody who doesn't have stun because you'll lose out on a second delay. So as long as one of the enemies has at least, I don't know if it has to be level 5 stun or not, but as long as at least one enemy has stun, and that is the enemy being targeted while you use Sync's LD, they will delay twice instead of just once. So you can do some interesting things like that with Sync, but I mean, it's weird as it sounds, I feel like she just doesn't hit hard enough to make up for her pretty bad speed and delaying herself. Trying to be careful here as far as when to reapply Terror. And more dive bombs. My plan is to run Setzer out, basically, of dive bombs. And then once Setzer is done applying the last set of fixed dice to Core and Eald'Narche, I will swap in X-Death. And then that's when I will use Core's LD over and over to get a bunch of turns for Core, to get a bunch of X-Death BTs going. I mean, you'll see. I'm going to do it at the end because X-Death's BT effect is actually not reduced by anything. Because just like Setzer, the laws of the universe mean nothing to X-Death. And let's see, they're about to get their orbs back, I believe. Yep. Now, normally, A right there, having hit 49%, would have delayed himself, but that doesn't actually happen until Terror wears off. So they should be delaying themselves and getting a red aura, but with Terror that prevents that. If I never let Terror fall off, which I do let Terror fall off, but if I never did, then they would never do it. But I want them to delay themselves, and I don't care if they get a red aura. So I will eventually let Terror fall off. But it's just something kind of funny. Another kind of funny thing for the stage is, for some weird reason, the very first turn of this stage doesn't seem to have any defenses or added defenses or reductions. So whether you use it for your character's first turn, I did Setzer's Freeze, or if you use a Call, or if you just use your AA, which I wouldn't do, but if you do any of those, you get kind of a free shot of high damage on the very first turn. So I'm using Sabin's Call there. He's, if I'm not mistaken, which I might be, but if I'm not mistaken, he's giving extra HP damage to the whole party. And I want to make use of that before I take Setzer out. Oh, Terror wore off of A, so A delayed itself and took away all our Brave. And Terror did not wear off of B. Okay. Anyways, trying to get the most out of the effect of Sabin's Call. I mostly brought Sabin for the delay at the beginning, but that second effect is also kind of nice. I'm reapplying Gabranth's debuffs because I think the orb was going to run out. I don't remember. But now anybody can up the orb, not just Eald'Narche. And I think I'm double checking to see what debuffs, or not debuffs, what buffs are going to run out of Eald'Narche there. We're going to use our last freeze because why not? There goes our last dive bomb. Oh yeah, so the freeze basically gave Setzer 2 turns in a row and an extra turn of rainbows, so to speak, because it is a high cast rate. And now I'm basically waiting for Setzer to get his next turn, and I will pull out X-Death. Except Setzer, I think he's been delayed, if I'm not mistaken. And unfortunately A is no longer targeting all or Eald'Narche, so that kind of stinks. But nothing we can't handle. After all, this team is pretty OP. At least when the orb is handleable by them, or is handled by them. I'm not really too worried about Eald'Narche running out of fixed dice. It's mostly for core at this point. And Setzer gets delayed again, which kind of sucks. And we're keeping the enemies with terror, and oh, so I guess that's something I can talk about. For core, I decided to use his skill to replenish his buff on Eald'Narche, which was about to run out, rather than use his EX. And the reason for that is I didn't want Eald'Narche to be acting without core's buff, because I would lose out on a lot of extra attacks, particularly while core has fixed dice. And finally, they stopped delaying Setzer. We knew it was going to happen one day. And so I can pull out X-Death. And this is a good turn order for me. For core, I want him to hit 10 stacks, which I guess he already does. Or is at. So core is at 10 stacks, and then we will... Oh, terror finally wore off of B. So I'm out of LDs for Eald'Narche, but that's okay because I still have 2 more turns of Eald'Narche's AA. And so now core is going to take a lot of turns. Checking the HP threshold, I am above it. So that's why I brought Paladin Cecil Call, because I ran this team before and didn't make the HP threshold because of the HP poison that they apply. Even if they're frozen, even if Setzer uses freeze on them, they will still apply that HP poison and sneak that damage up. So by now, core no longer has fixed dice, but it doesn't matter. What I'm attempting to do here is just get as much damage as I can out of X-Death from his burst effect. And then I'll probably go into summon eventually. Yeah, I'm debating if I should use Paladin Cecil Call or not, but I make the right decision and I use it for yet another shot of X-Death's BT effect, which is doing some good damage here at the end of the fight. Double checking my debuffs and positioning Eald'Narche. Actually, I don't think I needed to use Eald'Narche's C65 there. I just wanted the extra turn from X-Death's burst effect. And ooh, core did very little damage there. Starting with the Maelstrom, so that way the X-Death's skill 2s hit harder. But they're basically done here. They're not getting any more turns. Although X-Death has only 2 more turns? Okay, yeah. Have to be careful if X-Death's BT effect runs out, I could be in trouble. Fun fact, it doesn't happen this run, but X-Death's BT effect is like an HP poison where it won't actually kill them, it will just bring them down to 1 HP. So if you see X-Death's BT effect doing less damage on one of the enemies, it's because it only brought them down to 1 HP. so that's rare, but that's what that is. And there's the fight. So thank you for watching. Let's see, if you have any comments or questions, feel free to post them, and I'll do my best to respond. Feel free to talk about sync as well. Happy to talk about sync. And here you can see Eald'Narche has a 03EX, and despite having learned them, I have removed Eald'Narche's EX board passives. So that is a 03EX, Eald'Narche. And then Setzer has full ingots, and core 03. Thank you for watching.